The space around Earth's solar system had never seen anything like this before. Hundreds of alien ships floated in perfect formation, their crystal hulls catching the distant light of the sun. Each vessel was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Some looked like giant diamonds cut by master craftsmen. Others resembled flowing metal that moved like water frozen in time. The smallest of these alien ships could swallow a human destroyer whole. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiant, watching the massive alien fleet through the main screen. Her ship was barely 300 meters long, a tiny speck compared to the alien monsters surrounding them. Behind her, the rest of the human fleet looked just as small. 37 ships in total. Mining vessels, colony transports, a few military ships, and even an old cruise liner that had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Chun could see the tension in their faces, but no panic. These were good people. They knew the odds. Everyone in the fleet knew the odds. The aliens had made sure of that. A soft chime sounded from the communications station. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, we're getting a transmission. It's from their flagship." Chun nodded slowly. "Put it through." The main screen changed from the view of alien ships to the face of something that had never been seen by human eyes before. The creature looked like it might have been carved from white stone, with features that were almost human, but not quite right. Its eyes were too large, too bright, and they seemed to glow with their own light. When it spoke, the words came through the ship's translation system in a voice that sounded like wind through mountain caves. "I am Admiral Zeke Thai of the Galactic Empire. You will identify yourself. Human Commander." Chun stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. "Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Fleet. You're in our solar system, Admiral. State your business." The alien's large eyes seemed to study her for a moment. Around the bridge, Chun could hear her crew holding their breath. This was first contact with the Empire that ruled most of the galaxy. The same Empire that had been sending messages to Earth for the past year, demanding surrender. "Your business is finished, Captain." "Chun, the Galactic Empire has decided that humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. You will surrender your ships immediately and prepare for relocation to designated colony worlds." Chun raised an eyebrow. "Relocation? Your species has shown itself to be too aggressive, too unpredictable. In the past 50 years, you have expanded to 12 star systems. You have established military forces. You have refused to accept proper galactic authority. This cannot continue." The captain looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for her response. Through the communications channel, she could hear similar conversations happening on the other human ships. The aliens were making the same demand to every ship captain in the fleet. "Admiral," Chun said, "with respect, we've never attacked any of your worlds. We've never even met any of your people until today. That is not relevant. Our analysis shows that humans will inevitably become a threat if allowed to continue expanding. Your species lacks proper respect for authority. You question orders. You fight when you should surrender. You refuse to accept the natural order of things." Chun almost smiled at that. It was true, in a way. Humans did have a habit of being difficult when someone tried to tell them what to do, especially when that someone was pointing weapons at them. "And if we refuse your generous offer of relocation, then you will be eliminated, all of you. Every human ship, every human world, every human life. We have done this before, Captain Chun, many times. Species that cannot learn to follow galactic law must be removed for the greater good." The Admiral's words were spoken without emotion, like he was reading from a shopping list. Chun realized that to him, that's exactly what this was. Just another item to check off his list of things to do. How many? She asked. How many what? How many species have you eliminated? The alien paused for a moment, as if accessing some kind of database. In the past 1,000 years, 17 species have required complete elimination. 43 others accepted relocation after we demonstrated our resolve with their neighbors. Chun felt something cold settle in her stomach. 17 entire species. Billions of lives, probably. Maybe trillions. All erased because they didn't want to bow down to alien rule. I see, she said quietly. And you've never lost a battle during these eliminations? Never. The Galactic Empire controls 15,000 star systems. Our fleet contains over 2 million ships. Our technology is 10,000 years more advanced than yours. Resistance is not only futile, it is impossible. Behind Chun, she could hear one of her crew members whisper something under his breath. It sounded like a curse word. She couldn't blame him. So, Chun continued, you're giving us a choice between slavery and death. I prefer to think of it as a choice between survival and extinction. You have one of your hours to decide. If you do not surrender by then, we will begin the elimination process. The transmission ended. The main screen returned to the view of the alien fleet, still hanging in space like beautiful, deadly ornaments. Chun stood there for a moment, letting the silence stretch out across the bridge. Finally, Lieutenant Torres spoke up. Captain, what are your orders? Chun turned to face her crew. These were good people, the best Earth had to offer. They had families back home, children who were waiting for their parents to come back from what was supposed to be a routine patrol mission. Instead, they had stumbled into humanity's first and probably last meeting with the Galactic Empire. Open a channel to all ships in the fleet, she said. Channel open, Captain. Chun took a deep breath. Across the fleet, 37 ship captains were waiting to hear what she had to say. The fate of the human race might very well depend on her next words. This is Captain Chun to all ships. You all heard the same message I did. The aliens want us to choose between surrender and death. They've told us that resistance is impossible. They've told us that they've never lost a battle. She paused, looking out at the alien ships on the screen. Hundreds of them, each one capable of destroying her entire fleet without breaking a sweat. Well, she said, and to her own surprise, she felt a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I guess they've never fought humans before. She cut the transmission and turned back to her crew. Several of them were staring at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. But there was something funny about the whole situation. Here were these aliens, so sure of themselves, so certain that fear was the only reasonable response to overwhelming force. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Captain? Torres asked again. Your orders? Chun's smile grew wider. Then, without warning, she started to laugh. Not the desperate laughter of someone who had lost their mind, but the genuine amusement of someone who had just heard a particularly good joke. Sir? Chief Engineer Rodriguez asked from his station. Chun wiped her eyes and looked around at her. Confused crew. Sorry, she said. It's just that I think these aliens are about to learn something new about humans. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Their captain had just laughed in the face of certain death. They weren't sure if that was inspiring or terrifying. Outside, the alien fleet waited patiently for humanity's answer. The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Captain Chun's laughter had been heard on open channels, and now every ship in the small flotilla knew what their commander thought about the alien ultimatum. The response was not what Admiral Zeke Thigh expected. Aboard the mining vessel Stubborn Mule, Chief Engineer Rodriguez was explaining the situation to his crew when he heard the captain's transmission. The old man stopped mid-sentence, listened to Chun's words, and then did something that surprised everyone in the engine room. He slapped his knee and burst out laughing. "Chief?" asked Petty Officer Kim, a young woman who had joined the mining crew only 6 months ago. "Are you okay?" Rodriguez wiped tears from his eyes and grinned at his confused crew. "Kids, do you know what Captain Chun just did? She laughed at aliens who want to kill us all," suggested Machinist Davis. No, Rodriguez shook his head. "She just told the biggest, baddest empire in the galaxy to hold her beer and watch this." The crew stared at him blankly. They were all young, mostly from the mining colonies. They didn't understand what the old engineer found so funny about their situation. "Look," Rodriguez explained, "I've been working space mining for 40 years. You know what we do when someone tells us something is impossible? When they say a rock is too big to move, or an asteroid is too dangerous to crack, we find a way to do it anyway?" Kim ventured. "Exactly. And you know what we say right before we do something really stupid and dangerous?" "Hold my beer and watch this," Davis said, understanding beginning to dawn on his face. "That's right. And that, my friends, is what Captain Chun just told the entire Galactic Empire." Rodriguez started laughing again. "They have no idea what they're dealing with." Similar conversations were happening across the fleet. On the colony, Transport New Horizon, Captain Martinez was reading reports from his department heads when the ship's doctor walked onto the bridge. "Captain," Dr. Walsh said, "I need to report something strange." "What is it, Doc?" "I've been monitoring the crew's psychological state since the alien ultimatum. I expected to see panic, depression, maybe some cases of acute stress. Instead, I'm seeing something I've never encountered in the medical literature." Martinez looked up from his reports. "What kind of something?" "The crew is... they're excited. Heart rates are elevated, but not from fear. Adrenaline levels are high, but the brain chemistry shows anticipation, not terror. It's like they're getting ready for the biggest challenge of their lives, and they're looking forward to it." The captain thought about this for a moment. "Doc, have you ever watched humans play sports?" "Of course." "What happens when a team is completely outmatched? When they're playing against opponents who are bigger, stronger, and better trained?" "Doctor." Walsh considered the question. "Well, usually they lose badly. But how do they act before the game?" The doctor's eyes widened as understanding hit him. "They get excited. They pump themselves up. They start believing they can win against impossible odds." "Exactly. And sometimes, just sometimes, they actually do win." On the bridge of the luxury liner Wanderlust, Captain Thompson was having his own revelation. His ship was the least military vessel in the entire fleet. It was designed to carry wealthy tourists on pleasure cruises between Earth and the outer colonies. The most dangerous thing it had ever faced was a minor asteroid shower. Now it was part of humanity's last stand against galactic extinction. "Captain," his first officer said, "I've been talking to the other department heads. The crew wants to know if we're going to fight." Thompson looked around his bridge. These people were hospitality workers, not soldiers. They were trained to serve drinks and make beds, not fight wars. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I'd ask you." "But, sir, they don't seem scared. They seem ... determined." Thompson walked to the main viewing screen and looked out at the alien fleet. Hundreds of massive ships, each one capable of destroying his luxury liner without effort. It should have been terrifying. Instead, he found himself thinking about his grandfather. The old man had been a pilot during the Third World War. He used to tell stories about flying missions where the odds of survival were almost zero. When Thompson was young, he had asked his grandfather why anyone would volunteer for such dangerous missions. "Because," the old man had said, "sometimes somebody has to stand up and say no. Even when saying no means you're probably going to die. Especially then. Thompson turned back to his crew. Yes, he said, we're going to fight. Meanwhile, on the alien flagship, Admiral Zeke Thai was trying to understand what he was seeing. The Empire's listening stations were intercepting human communications across the fleet, and the translations made no sense. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, the humans are not responding as expected. Explain. Our psychological analysis predicted fear, despair, and rapid surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, we are detecting elevated stress levels consistent with pre-combat excitement. They appear to be preparing for battle. Zeke Thai's large eyes grew even larger. In his 1,000 years of service to the Empire, he had conquered 47 star systems. He had overseen the elimination of 3 species and the relocation of dozens more. Never had he encountered a species that responded to certain death with excitement. Are you certain the translations are correct? Yes, Admiral. We are also intercepting what appear to be recreational communications. Jokes, stories, and something called betting pools, where they are wagering on various survival scenarios. Betting. Pools? Yes, sir. They are making numerical predictions about how long they will survive, how many of our ships they might damage, and whether Captain Shun will go out with style. We are uncertain what the last phrase means. Zeke Thai was quiet for a long moment. The Empire had detailed psychological profiles of over 10,000 species. Fear was a universal constant. When faced with extinction, intelligent beings begged, bargained, or simply shut down. They did not make jokes. Have you found any reference to this behavior in our databases? We have found some historical references to what humans call gallows humor, the tendency to make jokes when facing death. However, our analysts believe this is simply a primitive coping mechanism. Then why do our psychological prediction models show a 0% chance of surrender? The intelligence officer hesitated. Sir, the models may be incomplete. Human behavior appears to operate outside normal parameters. On the human fleet, the laughter was spreading. Crew members who had been terrified an hour ago were now making dark jokes about their situation. Someone on the cargo hauler Lucky Strike had started a betting pool on how many alien ships they could ram before being destroyed. The crew of the research vessel Darwin's Dream was taking bets on whether they could modify their deep space sensors to blind alien targeting systems. Most disturbing to the alien observers, the humans were working. Instead of panicking or preparing for surrender, every ship in the fleet was bustling with activity. Engineers were modifying systems. Weapons officers were running calculations. Even the cruise ship was reorganizing its luxury amenities into something resembling a combat configuration. Captain Chun received reports from across the fleet as the hour deadline approached. Every captain reported the same thing. Their crews were ready to fight. Not because they thought they could win, but because they refused to go quietly. Captain, Lieutenant Torres announced, we're receiving another transmission from the alien flagship. Put it through. Admiral Zeke Thai appeared. On the screen again, his glowing eyes studying Chun's face. Captain Shun, our sensors indicate your ships are preparing for combat. This is not logical behavior. Chun smiled. Probably not, no. You cannot win. Our analysis shows your defeat is mathematically certain. Your analysis is probably right. Then, why do you not surrender? Chun looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for her answer. Behind them, 36 other ships full of humans were waiting for the same thing. Admiral, she said, has your empire ever heard of a place called Thermopylae? The alien's expression did not change. We have no record of this location. It was a battle fought on Earth thousands of years ago. 300 soldiers held a mountain pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they were going to die. They knew they couldn't win, but they fought anyway. Why? Chun's smile grew wider. Because sometimes, Admiral, somebody has to be willing to say no, even when saying no is impossible. The transmission ended. Across the human fleet, 37 ships waited for the alien response. In the engine rooms and weapon bays, on the Youngbees, bridges and in the corridors, humans prepared for a battle they could not win, and they were still laughing. The hour deadline passed without a word from the human fleet. Admiral Zeet-Thai waited exactly 60 minutes and opened communications to all human ships at once. Captain Shun, your time has expired. Do you surrender? The response came back. Immediately, no, and you have chosen extinction. Looks that way. Zeet-Thai closed the channel and turned to his tactical officer. Begin preparation for elimination sequence. Standard pattern 7. But as the alien fleet moved into attack, formation, something unexpected was happening aboard the human ships. They were not cowering or preparing for death. They were working harder than ever. On the mining ship Stubborn Mule, Chief Engineer Rodriguez stood in the cargo bay surrounded by industrial equipment. His crew was busy welding, cutting, and rebuilding machinery that had been designed to crack. Asteroids. Chief, called out Machinist Davis, you sure this is going to work? Rodriguez grinned as he watched his people turn mining lasers into weapons. Kid, I've been cracking rocks for 40 years. Those alien ships are just really big. Really pretty rocks. But sir, these are industrial tools, not weapons. Everything's a weapon if you use it right. Hand me that plasma cutter. Rodriguez had spent his career making impossible things possible. When the mining companies said an asteroid was too big to move, he found a way to move it. When they said a job was too dangerous, he made it safe. When they said something couldn't be done, he did it anyway. The alien ships were just another impossible job. On the research vessel Darwin's Dream, Dr. Sarah Kim was doing something that would have made her university professors very proud. She was solving the biggest puzzle of her career. Computer, show me the analysis of alien communication patterns again. The ship's computer displayed streams of data that Kim had been collecting for the past hour. Every time the aliens communicated with each other, their messages traveled faster than light through some kind of quantum network. Kim had been studying that network. There, she said, pointing at her screen. Do you see it? Her research assistant, Dr. Park, leaned over her shoulder. See what? The pattern. Look at the timing. Every ship in their fleet receives the same command at exactly the same moment. Perfect coordination. That's what makes them so effective in battle. That's also what makes them vulnerable. Park looked confused. How is perfect coordination? A weakness? Kim smiled. It was the same smile she got when she was about to publish a paper that would change everything. Because it's a network. And every network can be hacked if you know how it works. You're talking about hacking an alien quantum communication system with our computers? Not hacking. Confusing. If I can introduce the right kind of signal into their network, something that looks like a valid command but creates contradictions, the whole system could crash? Or better, it could turn their coordination into chaos. On the luxury liner Wanderlust, Captain Thompson was discovering that his ship was more dangerous than anyone had realized. His chief engineer, a woman named Santos, had been looking at the ship systems with new eyes. Captain, Santos said, this ship has something the military vessels don't. What's that? Variable gravity systems. We can adjust the artificial gravity in any section of the ship from 0 to 3 times Earth normal. We use it to make passengers comfortable and to create different recreational environments. Thompson thought about this. And you're suggesting? If we can modify the gravity projectors, we can create gravity fields outside the ship. Imagine what happens when an alien fighter pilot suddenly experiences 10 times normal gravity. Can you do it? Santos grinned. Captain, I once had to fix the gravity system while we were carrying a wedding party of 200 people. I kept the dance floor at 0.8 gravity while maintaining normal gravity in the dining room and 0 gravity in the swimming pool, all at the same time. I'll take that as a yes. Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. The cargo. Hauler Lucky Strike was turning shipping containers into kinetic weapons. The colony transport New Horizon was converting its terraforming equipment to something that could change the chemical composition of space itself. Even the smallest scout ships were finding ways to become dangerous. But the real innovation was happening on Captain Chun's flagship. She had called together the smartest people in the fleet for a video conference. Engineers, scientists, computer experts, and tactical officers from every ship appeared on her main screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Chun said, we have one advantage the aliens don't know about. What's that, Captain? Asked Dr. Kim from the Darwin's Dream. They've been watching us for a year. They think they understand human technology. But they've only seen our military and civilian ships operating normally. They've never seen what humans can do when we stop following safety regulations. A murmur of understanding went through the group. Every person on the call had spent years working within careful safety limits. They had followed procedures designed to keep people alive and equipment working properly. But those same procedures also limited what their technology could really do. I'm not talking about suicide runs, Chun continued. I'm talking about pushing our systems beyond their design limits, using equipment in ways it was never meant to be used, making our technology do things the aliens can't predict because we've never done them before either. Rodriguez spoke up from his cargo bay. Captain, my people have been thinking the same thing. These mining tools weren't designed for combat, but that doesn't mean they can't fight. Exactly. Dr. Kim, what's the status on that alien communication? Network? I think I can disrupt it, Captain. But I'll need help from every ship in the fleet. We'll have to coordinate our computer systems and transmit a very specific signal pattern. What do you need? Every ship will have to overload their communication arrays at exactly the same moment. It will probably burn out our entire communications system, but it should inject enough chaos into their network to confuse their coordination. Captain Martinez from the New Horizon raised his hand. Captain Chun, my terraforming equipment can create atmospheric changes in space. If I vent our entire supply of xenon gas and then ignite it with our plasma systems, I can create a cloud that will interfere with their sensors. How big a cloud? Big enough to hide our entire fleet. Chun nodded. Good. What else? For the next 30 minutes, the captains and engineers shared ideas that would have horrified safety inspectors throughout human space. They talked about overloading power systems, using life support equipment as weapons, and turning passenger ships into improvised warships. None of it should have worked. Every plan violated multiple safety protocols and pushed human technology far beyond its intended limits. But that was exactly the point. The aliens had conquered the galaxy by being predictable. They used overwhelming force in carefully planned attacks. Their enemies responded with fear, surrender, or conventional military tactics. The Empire had seen it all before. They had never fought an enemy that used a luxury cruise ship's artificial gravity system as a weapon. They had never faced mining equipment converted into military hardware by people who refused to admit something was impossible. Most importantly, they had never encountered an enemy that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. All right, Chun said as the conference ended. We have maybe an hour before they attack. Make it count. As the transmission ended, Chun looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching her with expressions she had never seen before. Not fear, not excitement, but something else. Determination mixed with curiosity. They wanted to see if their impossible plans would actually work. "Captain," Torres said from his station, "the alien fleet is moving into attack formation." "Let them come," Sean replied. "It's time to show them what humans do when someone says something can't be done." Outside, the massive alien fleet prepared to deliver the same overwhelming force that had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had no idea that they were about to face an enemy that specialized in doing the impossible. The humans were ready to fight. Not the way anyone expected, but the way humans had always fought their best battles. With courage, creativity, and a complete refusal to accept that some things simply could not be done. The real battle was about to begin. The attack began exactly as Admiral Zeke Thai had planned. His massive fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging in synchronized harmony. Every ship knew its role. Every commander understood the battle plan. It was the same plan that had destroyed 17 species and conquered thousands of worlds. The alien ships opened fire simultaneously, sending streams of energy toward the tiny human fleet. The weapons were designed to disable first, then destroy. Standard Imperial doctrine called for quick, clean elimination with minimal damage to salvageable technology. But something went wrong immediately. The human ships didn't behave like any enemy the Empire had ever faced. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting to retreat, they scattered in all directions like startled insects. Each ship moved independently, with no apparent coordination or tactical sense. A mining vessel, Stubborn Mule, suddenly accelerated directly toward the alien battle line, broadcasting what the translation computers identified as ancient Earth music at maximum volume. The song was called "Born to be Wild," and it made no tactical sense whatsoever. "What are they doing?" Zeke Thai demanded as he watched the human ships break every rule of space combat. His tactical officer was equally confused. "Admiral, their movements appear random. We cannot predict their attack patterns because they don't appear to have any patterns." The Stubborn Mule reached the alien line and did something no military computer had ever been programmed to expect. Instead of firing weapons, it opened its cargo bay and released a cloud of metallic dust directly into the path of an Imperial CRUICER. The dust was normally used for asteroid analysis, but when it hit the cruiser's energy shields, it created a massive electromagnetic pulse that blinded the ship's sensors. While the cruiser tried to clear its vision, Chief Engineer Rodriguez fired his modified mining laser. The weapon had been designed to cut through solid rock, but Rodriguez had made some changes. Instead of a steady beam, it pulsed at frequencies that made the alien ship's hull ring like a bell. The vibrations shattered the crystalline structure. That gave Imperial ships their strength. The cruiser, a vessel that had participated in the conquest of 12 worlds, came apart like a broken glass sculpture. "Impossible," Zigthai whispered. But the impossible was just beginning. Across the battlefield, human ships were doing things that violated every principle of space warfare. The luxury liner Wanderlust activated its modified gravity systems and created a gravity well that pulled 3 alien fighters into each other. The research vessel Darwin's Dream released a cloud of superheated xenon gas that exploded when it mixed with the aliens' energy weapons, creating a fireball that engulfed half a squadron. Then Dr. Kim activated her plan. Every human ship in the fleet simultaneously overloaded their communication arrays and transmitted Dr. Kim's carefully crafted signal into the alien quantum network. The signal looked like a valid Imperial command, but it contained contradictory instructions. The effect was immediate and devastating. Imperial ships began receiving multiple conflicting orders at the same time. Some were told to advance, while Others were ordered to retreat. Targeting computers received instructions to fire on enemies that were identified as both hostile and friendly. Navigation systems were given coordinates that led to impossible locations. The perfect coordination that made the Imperial fleet so powerful became a nightmare of confusion. Ships began turning in circles, trying to follow orders that made no sense. Some vessels opened fire on their own allies, their computers convinced that the ships beside them were enemies in disguise. "Admiral," the tactical officer shouted. "We're receiving multiple command signals. The network is compromised. Switch to manual control," Zeke Thai ordered, but it was too late. The chaos had already spread through the quantum network to every ship in the fleet. Captains who had never made a decision without computer assistance found themselves trying to fight a battle with no coordination, no tactical data, and no way to communicate with their own forces. In the confusion, the human ships pressed their attack, but they didn't attack like any military force the aliens had ever encountered. They attacked like humans. The colony transport New Horizon used its terraforming equipment to create a localized atmospheric storm in space, complete with lightning that struck alien ships with enough power to overload their systems. The cargo hauler Lucky Strike used its magnetic grapples to grab onto an Imperial destroyer and then activated its emergency thrusters, spinning both ships until the alien crew was too dizzy to fight back. Captain Shun watched from the bridge of the Defiant as her impossible plan actually worked. The alien fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming an hour ago, was falling apart. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired at random targets. Some vessels simply stopped moving. Their crews too confused to function. "Captain," Torres reported, "their flagship is trying to re-establish communications. Let them talk." Admiral Zeke Thai appeared on the screen, his usually calm expression replaced by something that might have been panic. "Captain Chun." "What have? You done?" "We're fighting a war, Admiral. Did you expect us to follow your rules? This is not warfare. This is chaos." Chun smiled. "Yes, it is. Humans are very good at chaos. Your tactics make no sense. Your ships are using equipment in ways it was never designed for. You're breaking every law of space combat." "Admiral," Chin said, "has anyone ever told you about human history? What does that have to do with anything? We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. And you know what we learned? The best way to win a fight is to do something your enemy doesn't expect. Something so crazy that their plans fall apart." On the screen, Zeke Thai looked around his own bridge. Alarms were sounding. His officers were shouting contradictory reports. His mighty fleet was destroying itself because of a signal that shouldn't have been possible to create. "But this is illogical," he said. "You cannot win through chaos. Watch." U.S. The battle continued, but it was no longer the quick, clean elimination the Empire had planned. Human ships darted between the confused alien vessels like hornets attacking a giant. They used whatever weapons they could improvise, hit whatever targets they could reach, and followed no plan except to cause as much confusion as possible. Mining ship Stubborn Mule rammed an alien heavy cruiser while playing music that the Imperial databases identified as something called Flight of the Valkyries. The luxury liner Wanderlust used its dining room's molecular gastronomy equipment to create a cloud of metallic foam that stuck to alien ship hulls and blocked their weapons. The research vessel Darwin's Dream hacked into an Imperial communications satellite and started broadcasting what appeared to be alien mating songs on all military frequencies. In the middle of the chaos, Chief Engineer Rodriguez made a discovery that would change the course of the battle. While firing his modified mining laser at an alien ship, he noticed something strange about their hull material. "Holy cow," he muttered, studying his readings. "Davis, come look at this." His assistant, rushed over. "What is it, Chief?" "These alien ships. They're not as tough as they look. Their hulls are made of some kind of crystal composite, right? Well, I just found the resonance frequency." "The what?" Rodriguez grinned. "Every material has a frequency. That makes it vibrate. Hit the right frequency, and the whole structure falls apart. Like when an opera singer breaks a wine glass. You're saying we can make their ships shatter just by hitting them with the right sound? Not just sound, energy at the right frequency. And I just figured out what that frequency is." Rodriguez quickly transmitted his discovery to the other ships. Within minutes, human vessels across the battlefield were modifying their weapons to match the resonance frequency of alien hull material. Ships that had seemed indestructible began coming apart when hit by modified mining lasers, plasma cutters, and even the Wanderlust sound system. Admiral Zeet Thai watched his fleet disintegrate. Around him, ships that had conquered worlds were being destroyed by mining equipment and hotel sound systems. His perfect formation had become a disaster zone of colliding vessels and random explosions. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "we have lost 60% of our fleet. Recommend immediate retreat." Zeet Thai stared at the tactical display. This was impossible. His fleet was 10 times larger than the human force. His technology was thousands of years more advanced. His ships were designed by the greatest military minds in the galaxy. And he was losing to a luxury cruise liner that was using its swimming pool's wave generator as a weapon. "Signal general retreat," he said quietly. As the remaining alien ships began to withdraw, Captain Sean opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Chun. Well done, everyone. I think we just taught the Galactic Empire something new about humans." Across the fleet, tired and amazed crews began to cheer. They had done the impossible. They had faced certain death and somehow survived. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans didn't fight like anyone else. They fought like humans. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Zeek Thai found himself sitting in what the humans called a conference room aboard Captain Chun's ship. He was not in chains, though he was technically a prisoner of war. The humans had offered him coffee, which was a beverage he had never encountered before. It was bitter and dark, but somehow warming. Chun sat across from him, looking tired but satisfied. The battle had ended with most of the Imperial fleet either destroyed or retreating. Zeet Thai's own flagship had been captured when the human mining ship somehow managed to jam its engines using modified asteroid processing equipment. "I don't understand," Zeek Thai said, staring into his coffee cup. "We had every advantage. Superior numbers, better technology, thousands of years of military experience. How did you defeat us?" Sean leaned back in her chair. "Admiral, can I ask you something? In all those conquests your empire has made, how many times has anyone fought? Back? Fought back? Of course species have fought back. We have detailed records of—" "No," Chun interrupted. "I mean really fought back. Not just using their military according to standard tactics. Not just trying to win using conventional methods. I mean desperate, crazy, willing to try anything fighting." Zeek Thai thought about this for a long moment. Most species surrender when they realize resistance is futile. Those that do fight use their standard military protocols. When those fail, they accept defeat. "That's the problem," Chun said. "You've been fighting civilized wars against civilized enemies. You've never fought humans. What makes humans different?" Chun smiled. "We don't know when to quit. When someone tells us something is impossible, we take it as a personal challenge. When faced with certain death, we get creative." Through the conference room window, Zeek Thai could see the aftermath of the battle. Debris from Imperial ships floated in space alongside the battered human fleet. Several human vessels were badly damaged, but all of them were still flying. His own fleet had suffered losses that would take years to replace. "There is something else I don't understand," Zeke-Thai said. "Your victory will mean nothing. When word reaches the Imperial capital, they will send a larger fleet, then another. Eventually, they will overwhelm you through sheer numbers." "Will they?" "Of course. The Empire controls millions of ships across thousands of worlds. You defeated one fleet, but there are hundreds more." Chun stood up and walked to the window. "Admiral, let me tell you what's been happening while we've been talking." She activated a wall screen that showed a star map of the galaxy. Points of light began flashing across the display in different colors. "These are Imperial communication relays," Chun explained. "For the past 3 days, they've been carrying news of our battle to every world in the Empire. That only proves my point. Soon every Imperial fleet will know about human tactics and be prepared for them." "That's not the only news that's been spreading." Chun touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed different colored lights, these ones pulsing in rapid sequence across multiple star systems. "These are revolts," Chun said quietly. "Uprisings on worlds that have been under Imperial control for centuries. It started 12 hours after our battle ended." Zeke-Thai stared at the display. Hundreds of systems were showing signs of rebellion. Worlds that had been peaceful Imperial territories for generations were suddenly in open revolt. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No, Admiral. This is what happens when you tell the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten." Chun returned to her. "Seat, you see, your Empire's greatest weapon was never your ships or your technology. It was the belief that resistance was useless. Every species in the galaxy believed that fighting the Empire was impossible, so they didn't try. But we demonstrated that they were correct. We conquered them all. You conquered them because they believed you were invincible. But we just proved that you're not." The display continued to show new rebellions breaking out across Imperial space. Zeke-Thai recognized some of the systems. The Cathar homeworld, which had been a model Imperial colony for 300 years. The Vex Mining Consortium, which had supplied the Empire with rare metals for generations. Even some of the core worlds, planets that had been part of the Empire since its founding, were showing signs of unrest. "This is chaos," Zeke-Thai said. "Yes," Chun agreed, "it is. And chaos is something humans understand very well. But how can this happen so quickly? These worlds have been loyal to the Empire for centuries. They were never loyal, Admiral. They were just afraid. Fear kept your Empire together, not loyalty. And now that fear is gone." Chun activated another display, this one showing intercepted communications from across the galaxy. Zeke-Thai could see translations of messages being sent between rebel groups, military leaders, and planetary governments. "Look at what they're saying." Chun pointed to one message. "The humans proved it can be done. They used mining equipment and cruise ship weapons to defeat an Imperial fleet. If humans can do it, so can we." Another message read, "The Empire is not invincible. Spread the word. Resistance is possible." A third, "Human tactics are being shared. Freely. Modify industrial equipment. Use surprise. Create chaos. The Empire cannot defeat what it cannot predict." Zeke-Thai felt something he had never experienced in his 1,000 years of service. Uncertainty. For the first time in his life, he could not predict what would happen next. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Nothing," Chun said. "You're free to go?" "Free to go? We're not conquerors, Admiral. We don't want to rule anybody. We just wanted to survive. You can take your remaining ships and return to Imperial space." "And then what?" Chun shrugged. "That's up to you. You can try to put down the rebellions. You can fight 1,000 different wars on 1,000 different worlds. You can spend the next century trying to convince the galaxy that the Empire is still invincible. She paused, looking out at the stars. Or you can adapt. Adapt? Your empire was built on the idea that there was only one way to organize a galaxy. Your way. But what if there were other ways? What if instead of ruling through fear, you tried working with other species as equals? Zhigthai was quiet for a long time. Everything Chun was suggesting went against everything the Empire stood for. The natural order of things, the superiority of imperial civilization, the necessity of strong central control. These were the foundations upon which his entire worldview was built. The Empire will never accept such changes, he said finally. Then the Empire will fall, Chun replied simply. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, because now everyone knows that it can be beaten. 2 hours later, Zhigthai stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, preparing to depart. Most of his fleet was gone, destroyed by weapons that shouldn't have worked and tactics that made no sense. The few ships that remained were filled with confused and demoralized crews. Captain Chun had given him a final gift before he left. A complete recording of the battle, showing exactly how the humans had defeated his fleet. She had also provided technical specifications for all the improvised weapons and tactics they had used. Share it with whoever you want, she had said. The more people who know how to fight the Empire, the faster things will change. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Zhigthai looked back at the human fleet. They were already working to repair their damaged vessels, preparing to return home to Earth. They seemed unconcerned about the fact that they had just started a galactic revolution. The humans had not just defeated an Imperial fleet. They had destroyed the myth of Imperial invincibility. And myths, once broken, could never be fully repaired. Behind him, the galaxy was changing. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had accepted Imperial rule for generations were asking themselves a simple question. If humans could fight back and win, why couldn't they? The age of the Galactic Empire was ending. What would come next was unknown, but it would be shaped by the laughter of humans, who had refused to accept that some things were impossible. In the history books that would be written centuries later, scholars would mark this as the day the galaxy learned that no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against the simple human refusal to give up. The humans had won more than a battle. They had won the future